The old house had many rooms, dusty rooms, dark rooms, rooms that smelled like forgotten things and old wood and time that had been standing still for far too long. But there was one room that was different from all the others. At the end of the longest hallway in the house, past the flickering light, past the cracked painting of a woman with no name, past the window that rattled every time the wind came, there was a door. A red door. Not faded red, not old, chipped, worn-out red, but a deep, deliberate, almost too vivid red, like someone had painted it that way on purpose, like someone had wanted you to notice it. And it was always locked. Every single day, every single night. Always locked. The people in town knew about the door, and when the subject came up, at the bakery, at the petrol station, over coffee, they would look at you in a certain way. Not angry, not amused, just careful. Don't ask about the red room, they'd say. And then they'd change the subject. What was behind that door? Why had it been locked for so many years? And why did everyone in town act like the answer was something they were afraid to say out loud? This is the story of a man named Daniel, a man who asked all the wrong questions, opened all the wrong doors, and discovered a truth he was never quite able to forget. Stay with me. This is going to be a good one. Hey, welcome back. Or if this is your first time here, welcome for the very first time. You're watching English Made Real with Zach, the place where you improve your English not through grammar tables or vocabulary lists, but through stories. Real stories. Stories with tension, emotion, atmosphere, and meaning. Today's story is a B2 level immersive mystery, which means the vocabulary is rich, the sentences have depth, and the English feels natural and real. Not textbook English, not classroom English, the kind of English you actually hear, the kind of English you actually use. My advice for this one? Don't rush it. Close your eyes if you want. Picture every scene. Hear every sound. Let your brain do what it does best. Absorb language through context, through feeling, through story. You don't need to understand every single word. That's okay. What matters is that you're here. You're listening, and your brain is quietly, automatically, beautifully learning. All right, let's get into it. Daniel was a writer. Not a famous one, not yet. The kind of writer who had 3 unfinished novels on his laptop, and a 4th one that was starting to feel more like an escape than a project. He was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of person who noticed things other people walked past. The color of light through glass, the exact sound of a house settling at night, the way a room could feel wrong before you could explain why. He needed somewhere to work, somewhere away from the city, away from the noise, away from the restaurant downstairs that played the same 3 songs on repeat every Friday night. He needed silence. He needed space. He needed something to write about. That's how he found the house. It was listed online with almost no description, just a few photographs, wide rooms, high ceilings, a view of open fields, and a price that was far too low for what you were getting. The agent who handled the rental was a short, distracted man named Mr. Farrow, who shook Daniel's hand exactly once and handed over the keys without making much eye contact. "Everything you need is inside," Mr. Farrow said. "What about," Daniel began. "Everything you need," he repeated, and then got in his car and left. The house was outside a small town called Hallow, a name Daniel thought was a little on the nose for a place this atmospheric. The drive there took him through narrow roads and thin forests and past a small church with an iron gate that was hanging open at an angle, as if it hadn't been properly closed in years. The house itself was large, larger than the photos suggested. Stone walls, old and gray, a porch that creaked even when no one was standing on it, 2 floors, a back garden that had been left to grow wild, with grass up to Daniel's knees and a rusted iron bench half hidden in the green. Inside, dust on every surface, furniture covered in white sheets, which gave the rooms a strange, ghostly quality in the evening light. Long oil paintings in heavy frames, ships, landscapes, a man standing alone on a hill, watching something Daniel couldn't see. Kitchenware from a different decade, a grandfather clock in the hallway that had stopped at 11:47. Daniel dropped his bag at the foot of the stairs. He breathed in the silence. He thought, this is exactly what I needed. He was wrong, of course, but he didn't know that yet. He discovered the red door on his second night. He'd been exploring, a writer's habit, cataloging details, collecting atmosphere. He'd been to every room on the ground floor. The sitting room with the dark fireplace, the kitchen with the dripping tap, the study which smelled of leather and something chemical that he couldn't place. And then he'd walk to the end of the hallway, the long one, past the flickering bulb, past the painting of a woman with no name, and he'd seen it. The red door. He stood there for a long moment. He wasn't sure why he didn't try the handle immediately. Something held him back. Not quite fear, more like respect. As if the door had weight, as if opening it casually would be the wrong approach. He reached out and tried the handle anyway. Locked. He went to sleep that night thinking about it, and in the morning he called Mr. Farrow. The room at the end of the east hallway, Daniel said. There's a locked door, a red one. Do you have a key for it? There was a pause, a long one. That room is not part of the rental, Mr. Farrow said finally. I understand, but it's not part of the rental, he repeated, and his voice had changed slightly, become more careful, more deliberate, like a man choosing his words very specifically. There's plenty of space in the rest of the house. I'd recommend you focus on that. And the call ended. Daniel set his phone down slowly. He looked at the hallway from where he was sitting, and he thought, that's interesting. The noises started on the 4th night. Footsteps, or something that sounded like footsteps. Soft, slow, deliberate, like someone trying not to be heard. They came from the floor above his bedroom, which didn't make sense, because the floor above his bedroom was empty. He'd checked. He'd checked twice. He lay in the dark and listened, and told himself it was the house settling. Old buildings did that. Wood contracted in the cold, pipes shifted. It was nothing. But on the 5th night, there was something else. A sound like whispering. Not words, not quite. Just the rhythm of speech. That specific rise and fall of sound that the human brain recognizes as someone talking, coming from the direction of the east hallway. Daniel got up. He walked to the hallway. He stood outside the red door. Silence. He pressed his ear to the wood. Nothing. He went back to bed and didn't sleep until 4 in the morning. By the end of the first week, he was asking questions in town. He went to the bakery first. A woman named Iris worked there. Mid-60s, sharp eyes, friendly enough until the moment he mentioned the house. Her expression shifted. Not dramatically, just a small, controlled tightening around the eyes. Nice old place, she said. You writing a book? Maybe, Daniel said. Do you know anything about the history of it? Who lived there before? Iris wrapped his bread very slowly. Lots of people have lived there over the years, she said. It's an old house. What about the room with the red door? She stopped rapping. She looked at him. She finished rapping. Have a good morning, she said.
The petrol station was the same. The pub was worse. 3 men at the bar who went entirely quiet the moment Daniel walked in and asked the landlord about the house on the hill. And then one of them said, in a voice that was meant to sound casual but wasn't quite, "Best not to go poking around up there, mate." That evening, Daniel sat in the study with a glass of wine and his laptop and typed, "Hallow, disappearance, old house." He found it on the 6th page of results, a digitized local newspaper from 11 years ago. A small article. The headline was faded in the scan, but readable.
He read it 3 times. Her name was Eleanor Voss. She was 34 years old. She had been living in the house for approximately 6 months before she disappeared. The article was light on details. Deliberately light, he thought. The way articles sometimes were when the details were the problem. She had no known enemies, no history of instability. She had simply, one morning, stopped being there. The case had never been solved. Daniel looked up from his laptop. The house was very quiet. From the direction of the east hallway, the grandfather clock, the one that had stopped at 11:47, suddenly, for the first time, made a sound. One single tick. And then, silence again. Daniel didn't sleep that night at all. The storm arrived on the 9th night. It came fast, the way summer storms do in open country, with almost no warning. One moment, a still sky. The next, wind crashing against the windows, rain hammering the stone walls, lightning illuminating the fields in long white flashes. The power cut out at 11:30. Daniel moved through the house by torchlight, checking windows, latching shutters. That's when he found the key. It was in the study, in the back of the second drawer of the old desk, behind a bundle of yellowed envelopes he'd already looked through and set aside. It must have fallen behind them, or been placed there deliberately, or worked its way forward over years of the house shifting and settling. It was small, iron, dark with age. He stood very still with it in his palm. He knew. He knew immediately what lock it was made for. Thunder rolled across the fields. The torch flickered. Daniel walked to the east hallway. The red door was ahead of him, visible even in the dark, that vivid, deliberate red catching the torchlight in a way that made it seem almost luminous. He walked slowly. His footsteps on the floorboards sounded very loud in the quiet between thunderclaps. The key fit the lock perfectly. He paused. He thought about Iris at the bakery, the man in the pub, Mr. Farrow and his careful, measured words. He thought about Eleanor Voss, 34 years old, who had stood in this hallway 11 years ago and opened this door and then, eventually, disappeared. He turned the key. The mechanism was stiff. He had to apply pressure. And then something released, a sound like an exhale, and the door swung open. Cold air rolled out. The room was smaller than he'd expected. Not a grand space, intimate almost. A single window, shuttered. A wooden chair in the corner. A small writing desk against the wall. And everything else? Photographs. Hundreds of them. Pinned to the walls, laid on the desk, gathered in shoeboxes stacked along the floor. Black and white photographs. Color photographs. Some recent, some old. All of them depicting the same things. The house, the garden, the hallway, and a man. The same man across decades, standing in various rooms. Always watching. Always just to one side of the frame, as if he hadn't meant to be caught in the shot. On the desk, A bundle of letters, tied with a faded blue ribbon. The top envelope read, in a careful handwriting, "For whoever finds this." And beneath the letters, a diary, dark leather cover, cracked at the spine from use. Daniel sat down in the wooden chair and opened the diary to the first page. Her name, on the inside cover, Eleanor Voss. He read. He read for 2 hours, with the storm raging outside and the torchlight slowly weakening, and the house around him absolutely, completely silent. And what he found was not what he'd expected. There was no ghost, no supernatural presence, no centuries-old curse, no supernatural explanation for the footsteps and the whispers and the clock that had ticked once and stopped. What there was a man. Eleanor's former landlord. Not Mr. Farrow, someone before him. A man who had become obsessed with the house's tenants, who had kept this room as a kind of private archive, documenting the lives of the people who moved through the property, without their knowledge, without their consent, watching from a distance. The footsteps she'd heard at night, the whispers, the feeling of being observed. It wasn't the house. It had never been the house. She'd discovered the room. She'd found the photographs. She'd packed her things and left. Not disappeared, left. The article had been wrong or deliberately misleading. And she'd hidden the diary here so that the next person who found their way into this room would know the truth. The Red Room was not a mystery. It was a warning. Daniel sat in the wooden chair for a long time after he finished reading. The storm had moved on. The silence outside was the particular silence that follows heavy rain. Clean, wide, as if the world had been emptied out and refilled. He looked around the room, at the photographs, at the evidence of years of something intrusive and wrong, at the care with which Eleanor Voss had left her account, knowing that someone would come eventually, knowing that the door would eventually be opened. He thought about what it meant to live in a place and feel watched, to hear noises and not know whether to trust your own perception, to be the person in the building who knows a secret that no one else will acknowledge. He thought about the people in town, their careful, managed silence, the way they'd been protecting something, or more precisely, protecting themselves from something. He took the diary. He left the phonographs where they were. He went downstairs, made coffee, and sat at his writing desk until the sun came up over the fields, gray and clean and absolutely real. He booked a removal company for the following Monday. He called Mr. Farrow and left a voicemail. Calm, factual. "I found the room," he said. "I read the diary. I think there are things that need to be addressed properly. I'll be in touch." He wrote in his own journal that morning. Not the novel, just his thoughts, just for himself. He wrote, "Some rooms get locked because they contain something dangerous. And some rooms get locked because containing the secret is easier than facing it. But locks don't make secrets disappear. They just make them wait." On his last afternoon, he packed his bags. He carried them to the front door. He walked back through the house one final time, a habit, checking he'd left nothing behind. He passed the east hallway. He stopped. He looked at the red door, standing open now. Just a room in the end. Just walls and air and a history that had finally been given a little light. He turned to leave, and then he heard it. From inside the Red Room, from somewhere behind him, from somewhere that the torchlight had not quite reached the night before. A sound. Soft, slow, like a page turning. Daniel stood very still in the hallway. He did not go back. He picked up his bags. He walked out of the front door. He never returned to the house in Hallow. But sometimes, late at night, when the building around him was quiet and the city outside was soft with distance, he would hear it again. That sound. Light and specific and absolutely unmistakable. A page. Turning. And he would remind himself, some doors protect secrets, and some secrets, once discovered, never quite let you go. So, the Red Room, the diary, Eleanor Voss, and a man named Daniel who went looking for a story and found something he didn't expect. I want to ask you something, and I actually want you to think about it. Would you have opened the red door? You found the key on a stormy night. You knew the history. You knew people in town were afraid of the subject. You had every reason to leave it alone. Would you have opened it? Write your answer in the comments. And while you're there, tell me, what was the moment in this story that felt most unsettling to you? The photographs, the diary, the sound at the end? I'm genuinely curious. If this story helped your English today, even just a little, even just one phrase that clicked, one sentence that felt clear, then hit the like button. It helps more people find this channel, and it means everything to me. And if you're new here, subscribe to English Made Real with Zach. Every week, I bring you immersive English stories at different levels: mystery, drama, travel, emotion, designed to help your English improve naturally, the way it was always meant to. No grammar charts, no memorization, just stories that pull you in and never quite let go. I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious, keep listening.